Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's family service. My name is Ron Suchia, and I'll be your chairman today. We'll begin this morning's service with Sanbujo on pages 24 and 25. Now we will have sutra chanting, San Butsuge on page 79.
Namanda, 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 Namanda.
Please stand for the Gatha We Are One on pages 150 and 155, or 151 in the White Book. Will you please remain standing for the reading of meditation, reading number 4 on page 17 in the Purple Book.
Meditation number 4. As the sun shines upon the earth, awakening into growth the seeds that lie dormant in the soil, may the light of wisdom shine into our minds and truly awaken us to our ignorance, and by this insight stir us to strive for a life of deeper understanding and enlightenment. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, Namanda, Namanda. Please be seated.
Now, Reverend Fujimoto will share a Dharma message with us.
Namanda, 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 Namanda. Good morning. Ohayo gozaimasu. Can we hear way in the back over there? Does that sound okay? It's okay. All right. Okay. So today I thought I'd ask you some questions, wondering, when people ask you about Buddhism, what do you say? What is Buddhism to you? So what kind of responses do we have when we're asked those kinds of questions? Maybe someone, younger one in your family, a grandchild or something, asking you about the Buddhist teachings. What do you explain? Or maybe you're coming down the elevator from the 4th floor in a hotel and you only have 50 seconds to answer. What's Buddhism all about? So what's in your arsenal to be able to respond and give a nice answer. So, we need to kind of think about these things. What does it mean to me? And so there's some stories and some quotes that I have today that I thought I would share. It's kind of interesting to explore that and, kind of a mindfulness practice of, what is my response? What do I think? Why am I even here, right? And so people find different reasons and they come here, and some people are very touched to be able to find a place like this, looking, exploring, checking different types of religions or even Buddhist temples, different types, different schools, and coming. And how do they come? Maybe they live in Alameda. Maybe they drive a few extra miles to come here. So there's some kind of reason. Oh, I like this temple. These people are very welcoming. It feels warm in here. What makes you come, or what makes you stay? So one of these, we hear quite often that Shin Buddhism is a teaching of gratitude. And so one of the talks, many of you have heard this talk that I've like to share. Some of you have not, but I share this story from Reverend Taitetsu Unno at some of our memorial services, kind of a reflection on what does Shin Buddhism mean. And so Unno Sensei was explaining that we're encouraged in Shin Buddhism to recite Namo Amida Butsu as this ultimate expression of gratitude. And so he shares his experience. He teaches at college, and then his father was slowly dying of dialysis failure. So he went to visit his father, stayed there for a few days, and he flew home, spending days with his dad. And when it was time for him to leave, he went into his father's bedroom to say goodbye. Pop, arigato, thanks for everything. And he wanted to say more, but he was overcome with emotion, knowing that this would be the last time that he'd see his father alive. So his father responded, no, arigato is what I want to say. Thank you for everything. So he kind of turned the tables on Sensei. And, in this very brief exchange, Sensei went on further in his writings, describing that arigato, many of us are familiar, defined as thank you in Japanese. And he says it comes from arigatai. This is the root of arigato, arigatai. And the dictionary defines that is too much of a good thing, or that is impossible to have been. And it points to a Buddhist worldview that anything that happens comes from all these causes and conditions coming together just so, right? So anything that happens, any encounter, any moment in our lives is almost impossible to have been, okay? Almost miraculous for it to take place. So even for us to be here today, maybe we're with our spouse, or maybe one stayed home, family's gone on somewhere different trip, different things happen. But we happened to come here. So many things had to happen. How do we even know of this temple? How do we come here? Why? What is our choice? We have 100 choices to come here, right? They had a big game, Cal-Stanford football game just last night here. And Howard stayed overnight just to make sure he's here this morning. Okay? Oh, so many things had to come just perfectly so to take place, right? And so this is how everything goes in our lives. So everything is miraculous. And through this perspective, we are aware not only I feel like this, or I want to be somewhere, this is important to me, but we are recognizing all these infinite causes and conditions that happen to come just perfectly to create this moment for me, right? So this awareness of beyond ourselves is part of our view of the world. Okay. Reverend Fumiaki Usuki, he's retired now, but he wrote this. He was asked to write something about Buddhism, and then he says, Jodo Shinshu provides a clear, concise, and no-nonsense path to understanding my place in this world. It teaches that no other person or thing is responsible for my thoughts and actions. Okay. So just by how he says that, I get a sense that he's very settled, very stable, very comfortable in where he stands in his life in this world. Okay. A no-nonsense path, clear and concise. Okay. Understanding my place in the world. Okay. Not who am I, what am I, while wandering in this infinite universe. He knows where he stands, okay? And no other person or thing is responsible, not looking to a greater being, a God, or something like this. I make up my thoughts, my actions, my choices, my decisions, and I live with the results of those, right? So just recently we had a minister's continuing education. So many of the ministers were at the Jodo Shinshu Center in Berkeley, and they had some extra additional books from before. And so, Reverend Dennis, take a look at the book right there, because your brother and your father has articles in there. Okay. So I took one of the books, and in there, my father is kind of known for his correspondence visiting prisons, okay, and wrote a book on teaching interactions with inmates at different prisons, wrote a book on that, and he shared one of the letters in this one short article. So this is what he wrote. There was an inmate, he's serving a life imprisonment term, and they met and corresponding for several months, and through his gradual understanding and acceptance of this Nembutsu teachings, it kind of woke him up, and he had his awakening experience, his Shinjin experience, and he wrote, and you kind of sense this, and he wrote this, the prisoner wrote, "When things are going badly for me in here, on occasion, I have said to myself, Namo Amida Butsu, and the conflict disappears. This I can't emphasize enough because it is truly amazing. As soon as I recite the Nembutsu, all anger is gone because of this almost magical unification with Amida. Whatever it is, I wouldn't trade it for a release date from prison tomorrow or financial security for the rest of my life. In fact, I feel so good, I'm going to close now and take a walk." Right, so he just left. The letter's done. So, you think of someone in prison, and my father would say, they're better students than most of us because they can't leave. They give them a book, they'll read it. So very good students in prison, that they have the time and the focus to be able to do this. Right? And another thing, the same prisoner, he wrote this, and you could work at prison and make a little bit of money, so he had saved his money, and he wanted to order a Shinran Shonin statue, and so he wrote to the BCA bookstore. And they have little statues of Shinran Shonin, kind of like we have outside the other door, social hall door. And I've always thought, when I look at that Shinran statue, he's very stable, and I thought, if Shinran were a football player, he'd be a linebacker, right? Barking out where to go, watch out for this, watch out for that, right? But he has this kind of a presence there. So this inmate ordered a little Shinran statue, saved his money, and then he says, "It was raining with intermittent snow squalls when I received my statue of Shinran. I had to smile, for here he was, 750 years later, far in the west, in the hands of one that Shinshu religion is especially for. As I walked under the stormy skies, the snow was falling. He was in my hands, you were in my mind, and Amida was in my heart. If I were a poet, I could really have made a poem out of this sequence of events: weather, emotion, the time lapse, the distance involved, and the environment in which it all taking place. The way the little statue stands, so staunch and sturdy, in my hands, in the middle of a snowstorm, far out west, in the middle of a penitentiary. Wouldn't he have been amazed to know how far he had traveled and how highly he is regarded? If ever a man understood man, it was certainly Shinran. So when you look at, there's the way Shinran stands, what he is appreciating of having this statue, I think there's a sense that there's no pretense in your understanding of what the Nembutsu teachings, what Shinran represents, what we come to recognize in ourselves and how we carry ourselves. So without the pretense, we don't have to get bogged down in our self-concerns, our self-images. Reverend Ron Miyamura, he wrote this: Shin Buddhism, Jodo Shinshu, is a path of Buddhism that allows ordinary people to realize awakening without requirements or accomplishments. In Shin Buddhism, I am reminded that I am such a foolish being. Thus I can drop my ego self and accept my limitations. The rest will take care of itself. So he's acknowledging, and we talk about this often, it's for ordinary people, everyday people. This form of Buddhism, especially fitting our lives. We get so busy, we have so many responsibilities to take care of, but still, there's a way, a practice of Buddhism, this Nembutsu teachings. So just reciting the Nembutsu and connecting, redirecting our thoughts from just me to looking out, reminding ourselves this vast, vast interconnected reality that we live in. Okay, so we're always taught about our greed, anger, and ignorance, blind passions. And so in Shin Buddhism, he says, I am reminded that I am such a foolish being, right? So we remind ourselves. We don't get all caught up in ourselves, in what I've done, what I've accomplished, but we can be humbled by knowing the poisons. I am such a foolish being, so I'm not so ego self-centered, self-absorbed. We don't stand in that kind of position. I accept my limitations. Right? And many of us come to appreciate Reverend Patty Usuki. She moved up to the Toronto area and lives up there now. But a couple years ago, she wrote this: Jodo Shinshu explains life to me. It maps the infrastructure of my being, connecting past, present, and future. It answers the who and why of an imperfect me and how I fit in infinite oneness with other, just as I am. Reflecting deeply on the wonder of such an inconceivable working that transcends words, a sense of humility, gratitude, and well-being arises. I am in need of nothing. This life is everything, and the purpose is clear. In a sense, I did not choose the Nembutsu. It called out to me until I found it. So, beautiful words that Reverend Patty was able to find, and so many points we think about, learn about the Nembutsu. How does it work? Why do I say it? What does it mean? All of these things. And so she says, right, I did not choose the Nimbutsu. It called out to me. And so it pointing out the directionality of the Nimbutsu. Right? Not that I say it and I get benefit, but it's coming from beyond myself. I didn't know about it till I came here. I didn't know about it. Never heard of such a word as the Nimbutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. But we say it often. We hear other people say it again and again and again, after every time, before every meal, saying it again and again. The words coming from the infinite, calling out to me until I found it, right? So a beautiful way to express her discovery and her entry into this Nimbutsu path, right? I'm in need of nothing. This life is everything. The purpose is clear. And just this, that all of this occurs, this Nimbutsu teachings, we study about the original vow and how it came to be. So she calls all of this inconceivable workings that transcend words. Okay? So many things happening. Again, all these causes and conditions coming to be just so. The Buddhist teaching coming through India, China, Japan, to the United States, to Alameda, to your house, to my house, coming, right? That's miraculous, again, right? Arigatai, miraculous. All of these things coming out just to find me. So how does all this work? Incredible, incredible, right? And so recognizing this, we step beyond our own concerns, and we have to have this awareness of all things beyond ourselves. Yeah. And that's our position as Shin Buddhists, as a Nembutsu follower. Right? So all these things, so many teachings that we come to recognize, understand. We see people right here that hold those values, come to accept and recognize, and the way they carry themselves, the way they sit, the way they ask you a question of how's it going in your life, what's happening with you, right? These concerns, reaching out, all these people that we come, maybe that's why coming here feels so good. Maybe that's why I came back after a visit, right? So many things had to happen. So one of the things, when we do our meditation walk and thing, we put up the different readings and sayings, meditations, and I was trying to put into words what are my thoughts, and one of those you have seen, and in these words, support and sustenance in all forms and limitless manner, gratefully received with mind and body bowed. So all these infinite causes and conditions, so many, limitless. When we receive them, then we become humble, right? Mind and body bowed. Compassion of the infinite embraces the individual. So this connection of Amida, all that is beyond myself, in my recognition of it. Namo Amida Butsu. Compassion of the infinite embraces the individual, becomes one in identity. Gratitude replacing ego. So the ego becomes dissolved in our gratitude. And this is our practice. So back to Shin Buddhism, the Nembutsu is a path of gratitude. So all these things, I could ask one by one, what do you think? What do you say? What have you said to people that have asked you about Buddhism? What does Buddhism mean to you? So thinking about this, thinking about that question, I thought, instead of ask Reverend Dennis, we should have asked the Sangha, and I asked the questions, pointed out to you. Well, how would you describe Shin Buddhism or the Nembutsu path? So maybe you can think about it. Maybe you can write me an email note. Maybe you'll talk to someone you're comfortable with and say, I've said this once, but I should have said this, right? Maybe we could add more. How can we make it a nutshell that makes sense to someone else that we meet? Okay. Okay. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Namanda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Fujimoto, for your Dharma talk today on how we can express our gratitude for the Buddha's teaching. Will you please rise and stand for the Gatha Nembutsu 1 on page 99 in the White Book? I'd like to express some acknowledgements. Thank you for those who helped with the altar preparations and with the service. Reverend Dennis, YouTube is being handled by Morgan today, and the altar flowers by Reverend Fujimoto. Our organist, Lenny, who had covered for me because I mixed up the order of the Gathas, and for those who brought refreshments. Okay. Are there any newcomers or visitors today? Can you please stand and introduce yourself? Thank you. Welcome, and thank you for coming to our service today. We have some announcements. Next Sunday, November 30th, there's no service because it's the 5th Sunday of the month. Sunday, December 7th, is a Shotsuki monthly memorial and Bodhi Day service. There's also an Abwa meeting after the service. On Sunday, December 14th, is a family service and birthdays Sunday for those who have a birthday in December. Also on Sunday, December 14th, is the annual Temple General Meeting after the service. So I hope you can stay for that and find out what happened or what will be happening this next year. Are there any other announcements? Okay, I don't see any hands. So Sensei will now begin the Ask Dennis session, or Ask Reverend Dennis session, sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the fourth Sunday of each month, we have this Ask Reverend Dennis session, and people can ask questions or they can send it through the email, however they would like to do it. There's some things I have in mind also to talk about. Do we have any questions before I ramble on with my own? Yes. Okay. Good question. Sangha, who wants to answer? I think all of Buddhism recognizes our self-centeredness as a cause to all the difficulties and suffering in our lives. So they all, in different ways, address this self-centeredness that each of us carry. And by looking inside, looking at ourselves, we come to recognize that there is this ego-centeredness, and we to understand that is to recognize, to know ourselves. To know ourselves is to know Buddhism, right? So we look deep within, and the deeper you look, the more you see of this self-centered being that is here, right? And so just to stay focused on that this is where the problems come from, for your individual difficulties in life to families, community, right? Countries, the world. Everything comes from this self-centered perspective that we have. So to be able to move away from this self-centeredness, different schools have different ways. And here in particular, through saying Namo Amida Butsu, we are acknowledging that there's this greater interconnected reality all around us. Everything we have is because of this other and not me. I don't make the air I breathe every single second, right? It's there. I didn't even earn it. I didn't deserve it. I didn't make it, but I have it, right? The food I eat, the water I drink, the people I love, all these things are gifted to me. And in this recognition, then we are connected. We're not so self-absorbed in this little shell. You know, we wake up in the morning and look in front of the bathroom mirror, and that's the most important person in the world that's staring back at us, you know. And so this particular path is saying, get over yourself, right? I mean, this is the problem. It's important to look at that, but not to just dwell on it, you know. This is important. This doesn't mean you're important. You're not. So this, with this perspective, to be able to open, right? Parents, it's a humbling thing to change a diaper for the very first time, right? But we do these things because our world, our circle needs these things. We do things that we don't care for. We have to assist others. Sometimes we have to let go of others, let them have their space, do their things and whatever. So it's not just my own concerns, and we have to balance that. And usually we're pulling in our favor and not in their favor. So this is the sense of self that we want to step beyond, this ego-centeredness that we, and selfishness. So these are all, yeah, so this is why we read this pretty much every time, every day, every Sunday. When we get to, I take refuge in the Sangha. May we live in harmony in the great assembly as disciples of Buddha, be freed from all hindrances, becoming units of true accord. So what does that mean? To be units of true accord, to be in harmony with all things and all people, right? Not so self-centered, you know. It doesn't say become my own person. It says live in true accord, in the life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness, right? Freed from the bondage of selfishness. So to be selfish is this trap, right, that we all fall into. And it's just because you read it every Sunday, every Monday you've forgotten already, right? Because it comes back, calling us again and again and again. We remind ourselves the three poisons, greed, anger, and ignorance. Because we forget. As soon as we say it, we forget, right? And this is our self-centered focus that we have. You don't truly get rid of it until you die, right? And so to acknowledge that this is what it means to be a human being, it gets to the depth of yourself. So that part of it is important. Okay. Good question. You could go on and on, but other people are saying, okay, let's ask a different question now. Is there another question? One of the things I wanted to do is demonstrate the Oshoko, okay? Because people want to come up and do it well or right, and it's okay if there are variations, but basically we're bowing and are putting a pinch of incense in here, and I always try to describe it as taking a pinch of incense, and as you drop it in, it's like crack this shell, step beyond myself, connect to all else, right? So the form of it is very simple. Some people from their families, from maybe areas of Japan even, they might come, they might want to put the incense to their head, sometimes 3 times, and then put it in. You don't have to. Sometimes you line up, the person in front of you did that, so you think you should do it because you don't want to look different, and so you pick up all these strange habits that you don't have to, okay? It's Buddhist, right? No sign of the cross, just put the incense in there, okay? So 3 bow, basically, here. You're standing here, Amida over here, and you can see, you are Amida, so it's like you're coming like 1 step away from the incense burner, and you bow. Kind of like saying, I am here, and you set your own presence, that I am here. And you step forward, second bow, come on down, come on down, come on down. And you're looking at Amida, and you're sensing your connection to everything else. And you're done. You take a step back, and you come. Third bow. That's right. I'm leaving now. I'm taking my leave. Thank you very much. And you are moving. 3 bows. First when you get there, and you step forward. Second bow, third bow. Very simple. So I'm going to show people every now and then so they are reminded and becomes easier, more comfortable. Also, when you go to different temples, maybe you go to your uncle's funeral or something like that, and you come up to Oshoko, right? And so people can notice. Maybe you go to a conference. Maybe there's 4 Alameda people in a row. So Alameda does that very well. They notice these things, right? Alameda has a lousy sensei. Did you see all the different Oshokos they did? So, wow. We better talk to Reverend Fujimoto. Yeah. So anyway, this is one of the things we do, okay? Another thing I wanted to ask you about, like last week, Ho'onko, right? And we had this, I always try to explain, Ho'onko is the most important Jodo Shinshu service, the memorial service for our founder, Shinran Shonin. And I write articles, and I talk about it and all these things, but not that many people came, right? So why is it that they don't come? Is it the food? We say we're going to have a vegetarian meal, and so, I don't want a vegetarian meal, so they don't show up, right? And not only that, we just get whatever doesn't have meat at the closest restaurant we can find. What attraction is that? Maybe we should have a catered vegetarian meal. Maybe we should take reservations. Are you coming? Are you sure? How many kids are you bringing? And, we do that for prime rib, but we don't do it for the vegetarian meal. How can we get more people to recognize? Is it the name Ho'onko? What's that one? I don't know. I'm not going. Right. How can we promote? ho'onko, to make it, more vibrant, more attractive, that people would want to come. It's supposed to be the most important service of our whole annual calendar. And then we get a handful instead of 2 handfuls of people. So something, I don't know. Maybe when I was younger, I didn't know ho'onko. Is that the one we play bingo? Right? Who knows what people are thinking? How do we convey that? Please come. Maybe we could have vegetarian prime rib or something, and just lie about it, right? Or what if we switched our New Year's party and made that vegetarian? How many people would come to our New Year's party? Same 24 people, or, yeah, what do you think? Food's a big attraction to come here. Yeah. It's kind of cool to have the vegetarian meal, but I know I'm going to go home and eat meat, right? Because it's like a temporary setting that we're appreciative. At the same time, the personal preference is more than that, right? For myself, anyway. So, yeah. Yeah, just an acknowledgement of the role of being a monk in his process to learn and grow. Later on, he ate whatever he was provided, right? But yeah, from his beginnings and living in the monastic life, the appreciation of all of life, not taking life. So that's kind of a reminder of the early precepts of Buddhism. So, yeah. Any other questions? So, yeah, I was wondering about that just yesterday, today. How can we make it more impactful to have ho'onko come to mean something for all of us and get more people here? Some temples have this very nice scroll that they bring out, and it depicts all these different scenes of Shinran Shonin's life, and they present it each year. We don't have that scroll. Some temples don't, but many of the larger temples do, and it's part of their ritual that they bring out the scroll of Shinran Shonin's life. So a lot of things do happen, right? I was explaining in Japan, it's 7 days. Every day for a week, they come to the temple for this very major event. And so, I don't know, we could make it more attractive somehow. Maybe it should be a strategy committee topic, right? Or if you have ideas, why wouldn't you go? Who didn't come last week? One. Morgan wasn't here. Yeah, no, we could consider it, but it's kind of noticeable, right? So maybe it's something we can work on and fix. Most temples have it in January, but we have it in November. Is it the time of year? That's part of it too, maybe. So lots of things to think about, right? Okay. Any other thoughts or ideas? I think I've done pretty much enough for Ask Reverend Dennis for this time. Thank you very much for your question. Why don't we conclude, and we'll go have some coffee and tea and visit with each other. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, Namanda. Okay. I'll relight the incense and have people come up to Oshooko.